Good evening. This is On the Campaign Trail. Every week, we track key issues, moments, and personalities in the long run up to Election Day. But we want to be clear about the map we use. We know that the democratic project is in great danger, and that shapes how we navigate our way to the May 9 elections. It isn't just elections as usual. On the campaign trail seeks to make sense of the elections. We will try to discern patterns in the election landscape, determine paths to victory, discuss relevant policies, seek useful perspectives, all while keenly aware that the anti-democratic clock is ticking. In 2022, hashtag we decide. Without neglecting the other basic questions, on the campaign trail, we'll ask how we decide and why we decide. I'm John Nery, and you are on the campaign trail. Late last year, I wrote what turned out to be a mistaken analysis. I ventured that the far left, with the Makabayan coalition at its heart, would not support the presidential candidacy of Vice President Leni Robredo. I'm happy to say that I was wrong. In time for the start of the official campaign period, the Makabayan coalition, which is comprised of about a dozen party list groups, formally and fully endorsed the Robredo presidential candidacy. The Isambayan convener group named Makabayan senatorial candidate Nery Colmenares to its Senate slate. And on February 13, at the Quezon Memorial Circle, the Makabayan candidates, including former Bayan Muna party list representative Nery Colmenares, were present and active at the Robredo rally for Quezon City. How did this come about? What does this mean for the Robredo campaign and for the left's undertaking to win a Senate seat for the first time? Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined tonight by ex-Congressman Attorney Nery Colmenares. Welcome, Kong Nery, and good evening.
Good evening, John. Good evening po to your viewers.
First off, it took you and your coalition some time, but you eventually decided to support Leni Robredo and Kiko Pangilinan. Can you walk us through the decision-making process?
Yes, thanks, John. Well, actually, the first ones to announce kasi, first, Makabayan wants to support a presidential candidate, especially with, at the time, Sara Duterte running for president. And since the vice president did not decide to join the race, so there was a process with the other candidates, no, in the sense that we would like to ask them of their platforms. First off, John, very important sa Makabayan ang platform. Kasi we cannot just go to our members and say, look, support this candidate. So our members are farmers, are workers, are urban poor, indigenous people, women, youth, etc. So they would be asking us, so what's in the platform there about us? So it's very important for us because if to inspire them to campaign, of course, for any candidate we will support. We need, of course, to also convince them that the platform, the candidate we will support will be beneficial to them. So yeah, and then the vice president later on announced, and I think we wanted to talk to her and meet her, and give her our platform too and her comments. So I think it was October now, or I don't know, maybe November, forgot now, but it's later part of that year. And so there was that start of the process. And so, well, she made some comments, and then, but later on, because it was just a very short meeting, later on, we began to also consult the various, not just our members and our sectors, but the broad anti-Marcos, anti-Duterte forces. Of course, Isambayan is one of those. And the other groups that have a stake in the 2022 elections on various issues, especially the platform. So it was a process. And probably by December, more or less, we just need to clinch a few details. There was already this sort of thinking that the VP represents the best chance for the democratic forces to win against the Marcos and Duterte tandem. And of course, with a lot of commonalities in the platform. Yun lang, after the Pasko, nag-Omicron. So there was that delay in our decision-making process. You see, we always want to meet face-to-face. Eh. Ang hirap ng Zoom. But
Mhm.
yeah, but in the end, yeah, we decided about, I think, January 25. That's when we decide to announce that we will support the VP Lenny and Kiko Pangilinan tandem for the
Mhm.
presidential and vice presidential run. So more or
Was
less,
there
that
a
was the
separate
process.
was there a separate consultation process for the vice presidential candidate, or was it
No, no.
you were considering them as a
Yeah,
tandem?
as a tandem. Kasi ang platform naman ng vice president, more or less, fused with the platform of the presidential candidate. So there was no asking, oh, Kiko Pangilinan, what's your platform?
Mhm.
But of course, we know his platforms on agriculture. Kasi a lot of this, kasi John,
Mhm.
piecemeal ito eh. Piecemeal naman, no candidate has really composed a clear platform last year.
That's right.
Piecemeal yan. For every, if they meet with farmers, they say something about the farmers, and then if
Yes.
they meet with
Mhm.
workers, so it's a process din sa amin to find out their positions based on their public pronouncements and the forums they attend. No? So it wasn't easy kasi I'm not sure, but I think John, later part pa ng January, nagkaroon talaga ng mga clear platform sila once the debates in the TV debates came in. So doon namin pa lalong naklaro ang platform. Although we more or less have a clear idea of the platforms
Mhm.
long before the TV debates.
If I understand the situation correctly, this is an extension of support, not the making of an alliance. Am I reading it right? And is there a real difference?
Well, ang expression ng support namin, of course, is mainly that eh. Uh, Alliances, in a sense, of course, maybe it's an alliance, but you see, there may formalities kasi yung alliances.
Mhm.
So in a way, yes, but mainly the driving force here is that we believe that we have a lot of commonalities with her views as to governance,
Mhm.
and of course, especially accountability of those who committed abuses in power during the time of President Duterte. So those were the driving force there, the commonalities in our views with the platforms. So yeah, some people doubt na platform nga ba talaga yan, but in the end, I guess it was really the truth. It was a question of platform. And because probably normally traditional political parties probably do not put a lot of emphasis on platforms, but we do. We do. And if you notice, Makabayan, every election since 2001, we
Mhm.
always put out our platform for the
Mhm.
farmers, for the workers, etc. So yeah, I'm glad that it ended up this way. At least before there was really no rush in the sense that
Mhm.
anyway the campaign period starts on February 8th, so we couldn't really campaign anyway. So I think the January announcement was just timing lang talaga. It was a good time to announce it just before the start of the campaign period.
Kong, I'll ask you a double question. On the ground, what does your support mean for the Robredo candidacy? What can they expect from you? And what can you expect from them
Yes.
now that you
Well,
have fully expressed your support?
yes. We believe that this will be a plurality election. Eh. That is our thinking, even if they report very high numbers for Marcos. In the end, we believe it will be a plurality vote. So our votes have always been, we always look at our party list votes. And it's always been 3 to 3.5 million. Constant yan, consistent.
Yes, yes.
Any election, that's what the party list groups get. And so we think at the very least, we will get at least 3 to 3.5 million to sway for Vice President Lenny. And of course, we wanted to expand it to more than that, 5 million if possible, no, or more. But at the very least, that's it. So that's the first. Secondly, John, the quality of our campaigners. I'm not saying the others have lesser quality, but the quality of our campaigners has been proven through the years. Electoral
Mhm.
campaigns have always been, a makabayan sort of forte during the elections, and they're undaunted with the difficulties and the harassments and the threats. we had a lot of experience at the time of Gloria Arroyo when General Palparan was still up there in
Mhm.
power. But we were tested by in you know in grabe na na pagsubok ba. So the quality of campaigners who will fight to the very end for their candidates. That's another. Third, poll watching. Poll watching is a very important component, and we have the machinery already nationwide. The presidential candidates are, I'm sure they have machineries. They're probably building it up.
Mhm.
Probably Vice President Lenny is also, because she announced late, so probably the machinery is still. So that's another additional input because may latag kami sa buong bansa. So wherever she goes, at least meron kaming makabayan members in the area. And yung poll watchers namin, proven naman yan in many elections. Kahit nga minsan hindi nakakain yan, they won't leave the precincts na-assigned to them precisely because they believe in their candidates and they're willing, hindi naman sila binabayaran, and they're willing to sacrifice a lot to guard the votes of their candidates. And of course, the social media is another important component na maitulong naman namin. Kasi with our hundreds and thousands of members in our mass base
Mhm.
who will become social media warriors, they could also play an important role in an election where social media is really paramount. I mean, very, very important, especially in the age, in these times of pandemic, social media has become a major. So all these things will
All right.
probably help out Vice President Lenny to win the votes.
But what do you expect anything from them?
Well, syempre, ang pinaka-expectation namin doon, the platform must be, of course, instituted once she wins, the presidency. During the campaign period, of course, we hope naman, syempre, I would be a hypocrite if I say I don't want to be, up there with her in her sorties. But well, if they would get me to be a part of their sorties, that would be better. Not
Mhm.
only will it, I have to admit, it will help, of course, help me because I'm campaigning without the funds, and a presidential candidate can help there
Mhm.
in terms of sorties. But it will also inspire and invigorate our members. I'm sure if Lenny comes, they would be there. But if a Makabayan candidate is there, that would electrify them the more, right? Because andito yung kandidato namin eh. So yun lang, yeah. But it's something that I've always said, the campaign decisions of the presidential candidate is the prerogative of that presidential
Mhm.
candidate. So yun lang, kung hindi man yan matuloy, di ganun, we will just campaign on our own, but we will ibubuhos naman namin ang lakas namin. So hopefully, we will get there naman eh. I think
Yes.
there will come also a time, I'm very optimistic, na, parang mag-merge naman yan, mag-bolt in naman yan in the end siguro for a
That's right.
bigger and stronger campaign.
At the February 13 rally at the Quezon Memorial Circle, you were there. You're
Yes.
very, very present. You even took a video or and then a photo with VP Lenny. But
Yeah.
you answered on social media that even if you weren't called to the stage, and so I was going to ask you, in fact, whether you foresee a future where you can be called to the stage. So maybe perhaps if Isang Bayan were to organize a rally, you are one of the 8 official candidates of Isang Bayan. And then
That
maybe if they have Vice President Robredo there, right? I mean, that could be one possibility.
yes, that's a very good point, John. Actually, I'm one of the original conveners of Isambayan,
Mhm.
and of course, part of the Isambayan process for a long time before I ran for the Senate. And if there are Isambayan activities where they will invite Lenny and of course their senatorial candidates, the 8, that would be an opportune moment probably for me to be also there together with Lenny.
Mhm.
That's why maybe it's a good time also to ask and for the support of Isambayan to hold such activities in
Mhm.
areas where the vice president is going, so that at least there will be an Isambayan activity where the 8 senatorial candidates of Isambayan will be there, and the Vice President, and of course, Senator Kiko Pangilinan will also be there para magkasama kaming lahat doon sa isang activity na yan. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
Kong, let me ask one more process-oriented question before I turn to some of the issues we can discuss. This is your third run for the Senate. What makes this one different from the first two?
Yes,
I
well,
noticed that there was a drop in your numbers in the second run. What were some of the factors involved, and are those factors still in play?
yes. Well, we were devastated in 2019. There was just a lot of problems going on with that. Duterte was just omnipresent and omniscient at the time. So the difference now is, I've always said this, I have a very nice feeling this is an opposition year, no matter what they say, no matter what the resources of this other candidate called Marcos. There is more openness now on the part of not just people, but even local government officials. So very good, John. Secondly, I think the people are beginning to realize that what the opposition has been saying for the last, what, 3 years is true. And I think we could convince more people to get on board with us because of this realization on the part of the people. So, yeah, I think this is a different ball game altogether than 2016 and especially 2019, when I have to admit the opposition was swamped in 2019. So yeah, I feel very, very good about this. And the fact that the numbers I have right now are going up despite the fact that wala namang kaming ads nung panahong yon. And at the time, we haven't even announced our endorsement of VP Lenny. Tsaka ano, when I go to the provinces, there are more people na nagmi-meet, nagsusuporta. Of course, a lot of them are from the pink color. But still, there are also others naman na hindi naman pink, but the support is there. The fear of Duterte is gone. Duterte is now a lame duck president. And I don't think it will be a big factor in terms of controlling the people. Of course, we still have to be vigilant. But yeah, this is a good opposition year, John. And I'm very, very optimistic the opposition will win in 2022.
So maybe, Kong, the fear of Duterte is less, but isn't it also possible that the lure of Marcos money is much uh, more tempting these days? I mean, from all accounts, it seems money is
Yes.
flowing. Uh, how do you read the situation?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's that. There are reports of that. Yeah, but it does not transform into fear as of now. In the
Mhm.
sense that, if I show support for the opposition, I will get harassed, maybe red tag, but still, there's not that. The fear that is here now is that here comes this president who claims that martial law was a golden era, and therefore the danger is he could actually implement martial law again if he could think that it's a good thing to do. So that's the
Mhm.
fear there, the danger. And I really hope that we will be able to explain to a lot of our people that that's not the case. My attitude, John, to those who support the Marcos Duterte uh,
Mhm.
tandem is to win them over. First, they're ordinary people. They're farmers, they're workers. They suffer from high prices, contractualization, and so on. So they were probably convinced by the YouTube and the social media, propaganda of the Marcoses, but that's not something evil. Diba? I mean, the evil part there is the one who propagated the false narratives, but those who were convinced by such false propaganda. So sa akin, that's the first reason. They're basically ordinary people that we need to convince to our side because the platform of VP Lenny is actually for their interest. So that's the first. And of course, second, to win an election, you need to convince the
Mhm.
supporters of the other side to go over to your side because that will not only increase your vote, but that will also decrease the vote of the other side. So very logical naman yun sa campaign. And I think
Mhm.
that's a proper attitude for all of us who support VP Leni Robredo to attempt to win over as many of those who were beguiled by the Marcos false narratives during the
Well,
long preparation for these elections.
yeah. What I hear you saying actually is quite different from, in fact, what many civic spirited people are saying. I think it's a mistake on their part when we say, for instance, that it's the lack of education, or because they are lower income, they are vulnerable to the Marcos myths. In fact, what you're saying is that they are victims of a massive and long-running disinformation campaign.
Correct.
That's
Social
why
media
they
can
buy into this.
correct. Social media can manipulate the minds with the proper equipment. I mean, if Cambridge Analytics was able to convince the American people to vote for Trump, I mean, the Americans were supposed to be more educated than us if you look at their statistics. Cambridge Analytics managed to convince the British people to Brexit. I mean, if they can do that there, can they not do that here? So for
Mhm.
me, it's not a question of education or, it's a question really of the under the radar type of social media manipulation was
Mhm.
really a surprise to many because it was a targeted thing. Things we don't
Yes.
see ourselves, but these people see. So we were, and of course, the main reason is, of course, the new generations were never taught about what happened to martial laws. So they're very, very vulnerable to that. And that's not their fault. That's not their fault. So
Mhm.
it was the fault of the system, of the government itself that did not
Mhm.
implement such educational in the curriculum. So yeah, for me, that's I think the proper policy here to win them over to our side, so that we can assure a victory for VP Leni Robredo in 2022.
Kong, can you describe the common ground that you share with VP Lenny and Senator Kiko? Maybe some of the highlights
Yes, well,
in terms of
the
the issues.
Makabayan, yes, the Makabayan platform, of course, is comprehensive for all sectors. So we do not
Yes.
expect candidates to agree with us. Otherwise, mag-member na lang sila ng Makabayan, di ba? So we're very realistic here, no? Hindi naman namin yung dinidemand. We're not absolutists. So basically, first, foremost, accountability. VP Lenny Robredo, very clear. Accountability of the Duterte and the human rights violations and the corruption, issues like all these AJKs. So very clear naman yung position niya dyan. So that's very, very important for us. Second, ano rin siya, for example, well, hindi sa amin, but Endo, she supports, of course, from her pronouncements, we
Mhm.
look at
Mhm.
she will fight also for workers' rights. So at the very least. So that's good. And well, when she was in Congress, she supported land reform, of course, through CARP.
Mhm.
While we believe kapos ang CARP, still it's a good start naman. No? And I heard that she will review, of course, the implementation of CARP. So all these issues are very important for us. No? So yeah, there are many other issues. Women, environment, of course, lots of commonalities there. So yeah, generally we have a lot of common grounds with her in terms of positioning based on her pronouncements in public and her actions previously.
She did a rare flip flop as far as the issue of supporting the NTF LCAC is concerned. I think now she has a more measured approach, whereas before she wanted it abolished. How do you read the situation?
I have to admit, John, it caught us all aback because I
Mhm.
remember she mentioned publicly for the abolition of the NTF LCAP.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
one more commonality that, okay, common. And then sometime later, well, she announced something that wasn't really jiving with
Mhm.
what she said before.
Mhm.
So that sort of, hindered or slowed down the process that was before we announced for her our endorsement. So our thinking. Uh, but then they clarified something. I think Barry clarified that she supports the mandate of NTF-ELCAC. So I guess that more or less means, but that we gather from her pronouncements that she's for the abolition naman. So based on that, medyo okay na rin yun. Yeah, so sabi ko nga, hindi naman namin ma-expect na lahat ng posisyon namin mag-agree siya or any candidate for that matter. But at least mayroong ganong starting point na hindi naman dapat mag-exist itong isang ahensya using our money, taxpayers' money, attacks the taxpayers. Diba? Sa public funds, attacking public, abogado, bishop, pare, celebrities, community pantry, lahat na lang in the red tag and using
Yes.
our funds for that. So I don't think that kind of an agency must be allowed to exist. And they're going to put up school buildings and clinics. So, what's the, ano bang interest ng Jenna? Sino bang mas nakakaalam mo saan magtayo ng school building? DepEd, syempre, hindi naman alam ng general yan eh. Sino bang nakakaalam mo sino magtayo ng clinic? Syempre, DOH. Malay naman ng mga general yan, di ba? So, ito lang pork barrel yon. So, I guess, klaro yan sa mga candidates, and I hope all candidates is very clear to them that just pork barrel of the general eh. Bakit dadaan sa kanila? Didiretso mong pondo sa DOH o sa DepEd para magtayo ng mga school buildings and clinics if that's really the purpose of this fund for NTF-ELCAC.
Kong, we're running short of time, but I have at least 3 more questions for you, two
Sige
related
lang.
to your own senatorial candidacy. One last question about the support for Vice President Robredo. Were there any concessions involved? Was there a negotiation at the end in the last week of January, for instance?
Well,
Or
wala akong alam na other than the platform, no? Because after our talk with her, I didn't see her until itong February pala, 13. So yeah, it's an issue of after talking with her, giving her our platform, her hearing her comments, and then we began discussing it with the various groups na, including the broad anti-Marcos or anti-Duterte forces and so on. Yun naman ang process na dinaanan. So yeah, that's how it went. No? So ang mas ano pa doon sa mga consultations, is ano ba talaga ang posisyon nyo? And a lot of them are very clear. It was Lenny. So, wala akong, in fact, na-remember na one of the groups that we, na nagsabing hindi ako kay Lenny. Karamihan talaga ng broad anti-Marcos, anti-Duterte, and the democratic forces for that matter, where majority were all for Lenny. So, yeah, that was the process that I think.
Kong, if I can ask you about you yourself as a candidate, everyone I know who knows you, and in fact, the couple of times that we've met, affirms this. Everyone who knows you as very witty, even irrepressible, and yet your image is that of course, like a firebrand.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that, of your, shall we say, real personality needs to be conveyed to the public. Everyone knows you're, quick on your feet, always ready with a quip.
Yeah. Well, yung aking, really, I'm a very, very amiable person. Wala, di ako suplado and everything. Kaya I have a sense of humor. Hindi ko na pagyabang ditong sense of humor ko. But anyway, kailang, siyempre, ang aming trabaho sa Kongreso is checks and balance. And in checks and balance, pag nagkamali ang presidente, pag tama ang presidente, no problem. Pag mali naman, hindi naman, kahit presidente ka pa. In fact, para sa amin nga, mas dapat from the top yung bira we don't want to waste our time na magkaso-kaso sa mga municipal clerk for corruption. Dapat cabinet member siya. So, ganun siguro nangyari na fighter, di ba? Kasi to fight this out So, tinanong ako ng kaibigan ko, Nery, lahat na lang ng presidente, may puna kayo. Sabi ko, bakit may presidente bang walang nagawang mali? Sabi niya, wala naman, lahat naman, kahit pa may mali. O di, checks and balance ang legislature. We need to criticize that. We need to oppose that. Sabi ko, ano bang gusto mo? Yung kongresista na kung sino nakaupo sa Malacanang, lilipat doon, balimbing sa partido niya, o kongresista na kahit sino nakaupo doon sa Malacanang, we will maintain our constitutional mandate to be checks and balance on the executive branch. Sabi niya, actually, mas gusto ko yung kongresista na nagbe-maintain. So sabi ko, dapat nga hindi mo problemahin yung mga katulad namin who criticize any mistake of any president. Mas problemahin mo yung kasamahan namin na who doesn't criticize but tumatransfer lang doon at nagbalimbing doon sa kabila. Mas yun yung dapat yung ipunahin mo, hindi kami. So, nag-agree naman siya sa akin. I'd prefer you over them. So, good, sabi ko. Salamat.
Kong, my last question is actually, again, a double question. You're a victim of, you're a human rights victim of martial law years. First, how do you feel that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is currently leading in the polls? And secondly, does that part of your identity that you were a victim of the martial law years, but then that you transcended that victimhood, can that be part of your campaign? Do you think that will make you, I don't know, maybe a candidate of the moment, precisely because the leading candidate now is the dictator's son himself?
I don't know if it will help me in the campaign or not, but I think I'm the only senatorial candidate who was tortured and imprisoned for 4 years during martial law. And I think I have that obligation. I mean, So, I will be a part of that, if only because I don't want the next generation to suffer what we suffered. Bongbong Marcos is not being made to account for the actions of his father. He's being made to account for his actions. Well, sinagkaan niya ang pagbalik ng ill-gotten wealth. I mean, he hindered the return of billions of pesos of ill-gotten wealth which could have helped sa ayuda, libreng edukasyon, libreng konsultasyon, libreng gamot. So what kind of a president is he? Is that the action of President Marcos? No, it's his action. Patay na si President Marcos, actually, Bongbong Marcos. Secondly, he did not pay tax. Presidente ka, utusan mo yung teacher magbayad ng tax. Tapos ikaw, mayamang ka, hindi ka nagbabayad ng tax. Anong klaseng presidente ka? Whose action is that? President Marcos? No, it's your action. Nung EDSA 3, he was in full military fatigue, ready to shoot at Filipinos. Yun ang sinasabi sa may Locohan, nga ubing ni Marcos, ide. Naklakayin, ide. Governor, ide, Jay Ilocos Norte. So, bakit nyo sasabihin he was also part and parcel of that martial law government that oppressed the people and committed plunder? And of course, the human rights violations in Ilocos Norte. So all these are his actions. And I think somebody, and I'm sure many naman will say that somebody must hold him to account for that instead of, whitewashing the whole martial law thing, instead of being honest about his... Ang hirap kasi dyan ng kampanya na dahil wala naman siyang track record to speak of, lahat ng tagumpay ng tatay ko, akin yan. Lahat ng kasalanan niya, wala akong alam dyan. Anong klaseng campaign yan? It's a very weak campaign. And I'm sure the Marcos numbers will disintegrate in the next few months. If it is a campaign based on false narratives and such fake news, for me, it will fail. And he will lose the 2022 elections.
Kong Nery, I have many more questions, but we're out of time for your time and your insights. Thank you very much, former Congressman Nery Colmenares, Makabayan and Isang Bayan candidate for the Senate. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
The decision of the Makabayan Coalition to support the Robredo Pangilinan campaign is a consequential development. We asked our colleagues, Inday Espina Barona, Rappler Regional Head, and Felipe Salvosa, Press 1 PH Editor and Professor of Journalism at the University of Santo Tomas, to help us understand the Makabayan decision. Thank you, Inday, and Prof. Ipe for joining us.
Hi, John.
Thank you, John, for inviting me.
So a question for the two of you to start things off. Did you see this coming, Makabayan endorsing Robredo? Inday first and then Prof. Ipe.
I'll start there. I know a lot of people in the Makabayan, not just the sitting legislators, but
Mhm.
also the leaders of their different party list groups, and the other allied organizations. No? Um, and right from the start, alam kong hindi ko sasabihin mapipilitan, but right from the start, I knew that one way or the other, the Makabayan would eventually be endorsing Lenny Robredo simply because marami rin talaga sa kanila dyan ang nakatingin at nakasabi na if we're just going to base it on platforms, not personality, but platforms and track record and statements said, um, maliban of course kay Leody de Guzman, who is of course
Mhm.
as radical as many of the Makabayan members are, ang tingin talaga nila, whether it's middle forces or the worker component, si Lenny
Mhm.
ang pinakamalapit sa kanilang mga adikain. She's not leftist, definitely, but at least, as Nery said, where human rights is concerned, where accountability is concerned, where good governance is concerned, malapit siya talaga doon.
Thank you. Prof. Ipe?
Yeah, I think Makabayan inevitably will have to come around to gravitating towards the Lenny Kiko campaign. Kasi si Lenny yung ano yung progressive candidate right? So siguro natin hindi lahat ng issues congruent sila, no, but um I think Makabayan has no choice but to go for Lenny Kiko kasi the other candidates do not align really well with the progressive agenda. And I think I'm really excited about this kasi this shows that Lenny Kiko, no, the tandem is very capable of forming a broad and diverse coalition for the
Mhm.
May 2022 elections, no. For the Lenny Kiko tandem to bring yung different shades of red and other political hues to their coalition and make it a broad one. I think that's exciting. I think that will, and these coalition members have the capability to really campaign for the tandem and surmount itong what seems to be a Marcos juggernaut.
Yeah. Again, a question for the two of you. Uh, Congressman Nery Colmenares talked about four factors, four assets that the Makabayan Coalition can bring to the table to help the Robredo campaign. Uh, First of all, he talked about it. His belief that it's going to be a plurality election. He talked about electoral campaigning actually as a forte of Makabayan, which is a political fact. He talked about poll watching as another of the advantages. And then he also talked about the social media network of the Makabayan coalition. Would you agree with this reading? And is there any other factor you'd like to add to the mix? Maybe I'll start with Ipe. Sorry, Inay, go ahead. You're about to.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. Makabayan's house to house, we've seen them campaign, whether it's electoral campaign or their mass campaigns for big issues.
Mhm,
We've
mhm,
seen their skills and their strengths house to house. No, um, especially in areas where, um, let's say, some segments of the police or the military who may not be very friendly with Vice President Robredo may
mhm,
want to harass, let's say, campaigners. We
mhm,
can we can fall back on the knowledge, on the fact that sanay ang mga makabayan
yes.
campaigners sa girian dito sa mga ganitong mga episodes. Poll watchers, then John, poll watching is very, very important because I talked to three different Lenny heads of local Lenny movements in three
Mhm,
different provinces in the Visayas. And yun na nga yung sabi nila, medyo doon sila nangangapa. Kailangan natin matranscend ito sa poll watching because we need to guard our votes. So I was going to ask Neri, and I think you said, I think Ipe said that Kiko and Lenny have shown, no, the ability to draw in a broad coalition. Kiko,
Mhm.
especially, as far as I know,
Yeah.
does have a very good relationship with many of the Makabayan legislators. And I'm sure may nagsabi na rin sa akin na meron ng mga pag-uusap na saan pwede makatulong yung mga pwersa ng Makabayan para nga sa pagbantay ng polls. So that's it. Social media, well, two things. Okay, one, if it's anti-Marcos, then yes, we can definitely say that Makabayan is nangunguna dyan, no? But there's also the fact that this campaign can only be an anti-Marcos campaign. And that's probably where they'll need to work then with
Mhm.
the other members of the Lenny Coalition para maipakita na meron talagang naibebenta na hindi lang yung nebulous hope but real platforms of government that will actually directly impact on basic sectors. Dito pwede pasok ang makabayan because they know very well paano maikwento yung ordinary experience ng manggagawa, ng magsasaka, at i-link dito sa plataforma ni Vice President Robredo.
Thank you.
I'll
Prof.
just I'll
Ipe?
just speak to the social media aspect of it, no. So ang
Mhm.
napapansin ko is ang lakas-lakas ng progressive talking point sa social media. So sa mga social media feeds natin, we can see na the young people especially are drawn towards Calyodi and Lenny, no? So actually makita natin malaki yung may overlap sila, significant overlap yung dalawang kandidato na yan, no? And ang lakas nila sa social media, you would think na si Calyodi is a major candidate given
Mhm.
the strong
You're
engagement
right.
he's getting sa social media, no?
Mhm.
Yun nga lang, syempre quid out tayo dyan kasi if you look at the ranking of social media platforms, Twitter is not so high up in the rankings, no. So Facebook, YouTube pa rin 'yan. But I would say yung Makabayan, ang daming marami silang adherents sa social media. Yeah, including former students of mine, drawn to that progressive cause.
Inday,
Yeah.
does VP Lenny need Bakabayan to win the presidency?
Well, there's what 3 million voters for their party list. That's a lot um, in well, as of the moment, it's not even a
Mhm.
close thing
Mhm.
yet, you know. But if we believe na aakyat ang numbers ni VP Lenny as it did in 2016, then she will need every single vote that is there. Ang maganda rin kasi na tinitingnan ko is yung hindi masyadong transactional. I mean that that gives some optimism, no? Na hindi ito a matter of what you can give us, VP Lenny, or what
Mhm.
you can give me. Pero parang both sides, I think, even if they're not necessarily talking about each other specifically, nakikita nila yung kahalagahan na there's no choice but really to work together and to help each other. And I think here, kailangan niya ng tulong ng makabayan. And I think she knows that. She may, what I've seen from VP Lenny is even if there are some things that may hold her back from
Mhm.
actually going all out, let's say, and being more supportive, nakikita mo na meron siyang kakayahan to work
Mhm.
on the sidelines with other groups, even when her hands are tied.
I get that. Prof. Ipe, does Congressman Nery Colmenares need the Lenny constituency to win a Senate seat?
Yeah, I think any alliance between the two camps are natural alliances, no? So because they espouse the same causes, no, they have a progressive streak between them, no. So definitely, um uh Rep Neri, Kong Neri will need the support of the Lenny Kiko tandem, no, to help boost his candidacy. Um, Yun nga lang, they really have to iron the kinks out, no. So I was there covering the QMC proclamation, no, last Sunday, and
Mhm.
although
Mhm.
nandun si Kong Nery, wala siya sa stage, no.
Mhm.
So what does that say to the coalition, na there's still many things to be ironed out, no, to be
Mhm.
able to arrive in a situation where Kong Nery is called up on the stage as part of the Lenny Kiko coalition senatorial slate, no?
Do
Not
you
just the
think that
one.
was do you think that was a missed opportunity, not for Kong Neri, but for the Lenny slate,
I think for both
not to have
sides. Also, I think for both sides. I think it speaks to their very deliberate manner in resolving whatever difference that they have.
Mhm.
Whatever difference they have, I think they have to resolve that quickly. No, kasi
Mhm.
we should set aside all of these. Maybe they should set aside all of these differences so that they can focus on on defeating the Marcos campaign. Otherwise, they will be bogged down by all of these differences that I think ultimately is resolvable and surmountable.
Aside from the possibility that the dictator's son will be the next president, there's another reason why I think we're going through a historical moment. I mean, the left right now uh, is in an unusual position. You have a candidate for president, and then you have a very savvy, very amiable, uh, congenial candidate in Neri Colmenares. And I do see what Prof. Ipe talked about the progressive talking points on social media. I've seen that in action. Um, my question for the two of you is, what does this mean for the left? What is the opportunity that lies in wait uh, for the left through this election?
Ako, I can see that the left is ascendant, no? From the previous elections, no?
Mhm.
You would think that the left would fade away, pero no, they're ascendant and they keep on drawing younger people to their cause, no? And I think it's an opportunity for the left to become more mainstream, no?
Mhm.
And supporting the Lenny Kiko tandem, I think, is the right way to go. No, if they want to become more mainstream and go beyond their young constituency and maybe draw the working class, no, office workers, no, who have much to gain from leftist candidates being in positions to be able to influence policy, especially economic policy.
Inday?
Yeah, I think it's nary partly, no? Of
Mhm.
course, the left has also shown na kahit ano pang bakbak sa kanila, and certainly, grabe yung bakbak in the last 6 years and even before that, no?
Mhm.
They've held on to their seats in Congress. But I think particularly with Neri, he's the kind of, maybe people may call him radical, and Neri will probably not say no to that
Mhm.
adjective. And yet, he has shown in Congress the capability of working all sides of these different aisles dun sa Congress. And actually,
Mhm.
meron akong narinigan nga na there's a Chinese Filipino businessman, and he said, bakit ganyan? Bakit pag si Neri nagsasalita, nauunawaan ko ang gusto sabihin, no? So in that sense, when it says mainstream, mas si Neri yung kanilang best bet
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
mainstream politics, precisely because he is able to transcend jargon, no? Kailangan yan within the activist circle, but he manages to be able to communicate. He can communicate with ordinary people and get them to understand what he means, no? And also nakita na yung ability niya to actually, I won't say compromise, but to give and take, no, sa mga campaigns. And from what I know, with the other political blocks, pag merong nagbabanggaan, mas
Mhm.
madaling kausapin si Nery kasi nga mas madali siyang maghimas sa mga tao and be able to let different sides come together and say we have more, than what divides us. So possibly pwede yan. I get what he says when he say na kailangan ma-resolve yung mga problems na
Mhm.
nananatili, because of course we can see from time to time Twitter flare-ups na nagpipikulan, in different camps.
Mhm.
But I think
Mhm.
also that there's already been lately a substantial discipline sa messaging, no? Na kung hindi naman kailangan ng patulan, wag nang patulan. But meron lumalabas yan, as, whether you like it or not, some people in the Lenny coalition won't like you. So just
Mhm.
just focus and, reach out to those who can like you and try not to disturb the situation kasi madadivert lang yung progressive na agenda and platform of the opposition if you start quarreling among each other.
John,
Yeah,
John,
go ahead. Go
you
ahead.
li-
Profi Ben.
you like you like speaking about elephants in the room. Eh. I think ang elephant in the room for the Makabayan block is the NTFL CAC, right?
Mhm.
So siguro I listening to your interview with Kong Nery kanina. I think he's looking forward to what happens in the future. Eh. What will happen under the next president? Will NTFL CAC be abolished or will it become stronger? So I think ang best bet nila is under a Lenny Kiko presidency rather than dun sa ibang mga kandidato who might pour in more resources into NTFL CAC. No? And alam naman natin, mortal na kaaway nila yung NTFL CAC.
That's right. We're running we're running late, but can I ask one more question and maybe you can have some quick answers? I was really struck by Kong Nery's declaration that he really believes in his bones. This is an opposition year. Do you think he has uh, you know factual reasons for saying that?
Two
Maybe
things.
I'll start with Prof. Ipe and then
Okay.
Inday can have her last word.
Uh, I have to see I have to see more signs no that
It is an
it will
opposition
be
year.
the opposition will have a good shot at taking over the reins of power. So I'm a keen observer of polling eh. No, so I
Mhm.
hope I'm wrong na I hope I'm wrong that in that the polls will hold. Um, well, some people would say na the polling methodology is a little bit questionable in a pandemic, no. Sana
Mhm.
ganun nga. But I still need more signs no na the opposition will have a good shot at winning the presidency. If Lenny's experience in 2016 is any indication, it's possible, no. From
Mhm.
zero, from 1% to winning the vice presidency, if I think she can duplicate that if she works really hard and she's really going around.
That's right. Thank you. And Inday?
Two things, Chan. One, the PDP Laban people, a big segment are not going for Bongbong Marcos. A big segment, well, not big, but a substantial number of
Mhm.
local executives of the PDP Laban have actually swung for Lenny, no? And we're not just talking Bicol, we're talking Eastern Visayas, we're talking Negros, we're talking other areas in Mindanao. It's happening also, and
Mhm.
they've said that um, the Duterte's antipathy towards Marcos, whatever is the cause of that,
Mhm.
um, has prevented the PDP Laban from coming up with one candidate. And so, sona libre pagdating sa baba. At marami sa kanila ang nagpunta sa Lenny camp. Surprisingly, Lenny Sara, but that's another
Yeah.
topic. Number two, um, when we say it's not just social media, it's people on the ground.
Mhm.
And it is quite amazing to see how a campaign that has very poor funding, as we know it, manages to come up again and again with rather big numbers of people, welcoming Lenny and all that. And I think ito yung mas impressive when you have um, local politicians, chief executives saying, this is the first time we've seen, we've gone to events where we didn't have to shell out anything because volunteers have apparently done it by themselves. Then you see that there has been a substantial change. Whether they can actually carry it to election day is another topic. But I think kaya I think if they don't lose hope and if they try to do more on-ground campaigning and they try to work together with the progressives who are actually very good on on-ground campaigning, may laban talaga sila.
And on that note, Inday Espina Barona and Professor Ipe Salvosa, it is always a pleasure and most instructive to hear from you. Thank you for sharing your time and your insights.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Well, that's it for us tonight. Join us again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Follow us on the campaign trail because it isn't just elections as usual. This is John Nery. Good night.